President Trump is on a warpath, ladies and gentlemen. He is set to reverse a lot of this social tyranny, especially from the Obama administration, and reversing a lot of these policies that will help make America great again. There is now substantial proof that President Trump has made America a remarkably less racist nation. In fact, this is totally being ignored by Hollywood and the leftist elites and their mainstream media lapdogs who continue losing their minds by outrageously claiming that the United States is being destroyed by increasing racism caused by Trump and his supporters, and because of whose obvious insanity does not allow these hate-filled leftists to see what President Trump is actually doing to protect this nation's most vulnerable minorities. The best example, ladies and gentlemen, is this last January of 2019 when President Trump went on a warpath to protect the rights of the Crow Indian Nation, who in 2014 came under attack from the Obama regime, whose socialist forces attempted to deny this Indian tribe's rights to hunt on their own land. And yes, you will not hear this from the mainstream media, but whose battlegrounds ended this week in the U.S. Supreme Court, where President Trump effectively scalped Obama by having his appointed Associate Justices, Neil Gorsuch, become the deciding vote to free this Indian tribe from the socialist tyranny being unjustly imposed upon them. All Native Americans, ladies and gentlemen, are American citizens. The Crow Nation is an American federal government-recognized tribe comprised of Native Americans whose lands once included a sweeping majority of the Great Plains region of the United States, but were lands ceded to the United States by the Crow Nation on May 7, 1868 in the Treaty of Laramie in exchange for peace, and involved over 30 million acres, and was a treaty whose ratification was approved by the U.S. Senate on July 25, 1868, and proclaimed on August 14, 1868, by President Andrew Johnson to be in full and legal effect. A central provision of the Treaty of Laramie, carrying the full force of the United States law, gave the Crow Nation hunting rights on this unoccupied lands of the United States, and that the tribe gave up so long as game may be found therein, and was a law being followed in 2014 when Crow tribe member Calvin Herrera went out hunting to feed his family as his ancestors had done for centuries, but who, for exercising his legal rights, was then violently set upon by the state of Wyoming, who claimed those hunting rights had been eliminated, either when Wyoming became a state in 1890 or when the Bighorn National Forest was established in 1897. An outrageous claim quickly supported by the Obama administration, whose socialist lawyers cited the landmark Ward versus Racehorse case ruled on by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1896 that stripped the Crow Nation of its Treaty of Laramie rights completely. Do you see the undermining going on, ladies and gentlemen? As well as every other Native American tribe that has signed a treaty with the United States. Upon his taking office in early 2017, President Trump immediately set himself on a course to destroy the Ward versus Racehorse landmark decision. As being a businessman, not a politician, he knew the critical obligation the United States had in observing to the legal letter every treaty they have ever signed, made even more important by the fact that President Trump had begun negotiating trade deal treaties with nearly every country in the world, all of whom would demand that their treaties be protected as well. This is what the left liberal-leaning socialists are upset at, ladies and gentlemen. This is why they despise President Trump, because he is disseminating and destroying all of their secret deals that won't help make America great again. Therefore, this past January 2019, President Trump successfully pushed this Herrera versus Wyoming case to the forefront of the U.S. Supreme Court, and where President Trump's attorneys urged this high court to overturn the landmarked Ward versus Racehorse decision and restore the Crow Nation's treaty rights, and whose 5-year battle to do so ended this week when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled exactly like President Trump had asked, but was a decision only able to be accomplished because President Trump appointed Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch, who sided with this high court's most liberal judges to make it a majority ruling. So you say, why are the liberal judges siding with this reenactment of this treaty even though the Obama administration was against it? Funny how that is, right? With President Trump having so far successfully appointed 2 U.S. Supreme Court justices in Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, so-called mainstream media writers in the United States continue failing to fully understand what these 2 new Supreme Court judges are actually doing, and has led to such headlines best exampled as after the Herrera versus Wyoming ruling stating conservative Supreme Court Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch disagree on 3 decisions in one day. While these leftist journalists are left perplexed by Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh seeming to contradict each other and often switching to either the conservative or liberal sides to gain majority opinion rulings, analysts familiar with American law have already determined what they are actually doing, and it is best described as both Gorsuch and Kavanaugh leading the most massive attack in U.S. history against legal doctrine called stare decisis that obligates U.S. courts to follow historical cases when making a ruling on a similar case, and more simply put, binds these courts to follow legal precedents set by previous decisions no matter what, that are most frequently called landmark cases, of which the Herrera versus Wyoming case makes the 4th one Gorsuch and Kavanaugh have combined to destroy in the past year. All of which is in preparation for their planned destruction of one of the most vile and destructive U.S. Supreme Court landmark case ruling ever made called Roe versus Wade, and that numerous states in America are now lining up to destroy as they know what's really about to happen. So now you may understand a little bit, as President Trump and his loyal forces prepare for their final assault on a landmark case like Roe versus Wade, being left unnoticed to their peril by this radical leftist mainstream media lapdogs vowing to destroy President Trump at all costs, now you possibly understand why, is a shock ruling handed down this week by the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit in a case named Atkinson versus the United States that involved a lawsuit brought by former CBS News reporter Sharyl Attkisson claiming she was spied on by the Obama regime, but was thrown out by these powerful U.S. federal judges who said they couldn't rule on spying cases like this as it would require an inquiry into the sensitive executive branch discussions and decisions that would overstep the authority of the court. That now gives President Trump the total power to spy unchecked on these radical leftist mainstream media types and their so-called reporters as he so chooses. And now that everyone has heard this report, at least now possibly suspects that President Trump has already been spying on them for months. Touché, socialist communists.
The walls are caving in around the deep state, and tonight we can absolutely positively report a pivotal document release is only days away. We're talking about transcripts, specific transcripts from the FBI's top secret surveillance of the Trump campaign aides George Papadopoulos and George Carter. This at the height of the 2016 election. Papadopoulos will be here in a moment to preview this major development. He used exculpatory language, and we actually have the tapes and transcripts. And according to our sources, this is groundbreaking information filled with copious amounts of exculpatory evidence. In other words, Obama's DOJ, Comey's FBI, they had a mountain of information proving that Trump-Russia collusion was always a hoax. They knew it on 5 different levels. Massive red flags were littered all over the place, but instead of putting the brakes on their witch hunt, they kept digging and digging and digging, blinded by this rage, this hatred, desperate to take down the president, Donald Trump, who they never understood why he won, because they didn't think of it. And by the way, their guiding light the entire time, Hillary Clinton's Russian, bought and paid for, unverifiable, dirty dossier full of lies. A clear example of what is premeditated fraud, conspiracy against Trump, members of his campaign, and guess what? On FISA courts. All must be held accountable. Now, thankfully, truth did prevail. 4 separate investigations to date have cleared the president and his campaign of any and all wrongdoing. And the hoax has been laid bare for all to see, and we will be giving you so much more information. Democrats in Congress, apparently they haven't gotten the memo. Jerry Nadler's clown show is in full swing, never-ending stream of frivolous subpoenas after failing to haul in former White House counsel Don McGahn. Well, then Nadler issued subpoenas for his chief of staff. Even former aide Hope Hicks, who, by the way, currently serves as an EVP at this network here at Fox. Oh, so we're going to make Hope Hicks spend, what, another $1 million on lawyers to answer the same exact questions again? Only this time it will be a perjury trap, because God forbid anyone that goes before Congress, if they got one minor detail, one little discrepancy that's wrong or different from the last time they testified, that's called a perjury trap. Now, the Attorney General, Barr, defied a request to appear before Nadler's circus and is now speaking out, telling the Wall Street Journal, quote, I felt the rules were being changed to hurt the president, President Trump, and I thought it was damaging for the presidency over the long haul. If you destroy the presidency and make it an errand boy for Congress, we're going to be a much weaker, more divided nation. Democrats don't seem to care. They're still fuming. And don't forget, Clinton aide, remember Brian Pagliano, Hillary's aide, server, Chappaqua, etc.? Well, he totally ignored his 2016 congressional subpoena related to the Hillary email scandal investigation. At the time, Democrats, they could have cared less. Again, selective moral outrage. Make no mistake, we are now witnessing this selective outrage at its worst. And meanwhile, Jerry Nadler's circus is also eager to feature, they want Robert Mueller to come in. Democrats are hoping for one last round of baseless Trump conspiracy theories and hoaxes they can perpetrate on the American people.